It is a pleasure to be with you again, talking about issues that are related to our Gnostic knowledge, which is very broad and has many areas, but always points to, in general, self-knowledge, that the human being knows themselves, that he knows his own mystery, that the human being becomes a detective of himself, that immerses himself in his psyche, in his psychology, and thus he will understand what he came here to do, what is the meaning of his life, and what is his mission in life. There are very important existential and philosophical questions that Gnosis covers in its courses and classes that are delivered right here on this channel. Today we would like to deal with a topic that is much talked about in society and very well known, which is astrology. But I would like to focus, as we were saying, on self-knowledge. In Gnosis, everything is a tool for knowledge. If we study medicine, if we study meditation, if we study music, all areas of knowledge of Gnosis have an objective, as I said, that the human being knows more about themselves, and astrology is no different. It has the same function. It may be that there are other schools of astrology which have different functions and objectives, and we can find all kinds of astrological lines that focus on the study of the stars to generate a prediction, to know what will happen in the future of the person. But it is not the approach to astrology that we use in Gnosis. The focus of Gnostic astrology is the knowledge of the psyche, the knowledge of the soul, through the study of the stars. So astrology is a compound word which means knowledge of the stars. And what is this knowledge for? Because in Gnosis we study that each person is born on a specific day, at a specific time, for a reason. Things don't happen by chance. We study the order that exists behind nature, and we study that the universe has a logic. The universe has an intelligence. So a person was born on a certain day, at a certain time, because all this has to do with the mission and the role that that person comes to fulfill. Then astrology would be the science that allows us to unravel the symbols, unravel the planetary positions to be able to know a little bit more about this person. What are their virtues, their capabilities? What are their traumas, their weaknesses, their frailties, etc.? So it is very interesting to be able to immerse yourself in a person in that way. It is very interesting to be able to meet people and understand how each person is so extremely different from each other. And there we would enter, if we expanded the subject, in what would be the vocation. What would be the personal fulfillment, because what one person achieves is not the same as what another person achieves. But then, what determines that day, that time, and where that person is born? What we study in Gnosis is the result of the trajectory of that soul. That is, that the soul doesn't have a single existence. A baby is now being born that now comes to the world, but is a soul that has a long trajectory. It is an old soul, as it is said. So the soul has many lives. The soul is immortal and has many bodies throughout all these lives. That is why it is essential for us to understand the Gnostic vision of astrology. So this day and that time in which the person is born corresponds to a configuration of the planets that serves to transmit or crystallize in that body, in that newborn, certain energies, certain principles, certain virtues. As I said, certain values, whether positive or negative, that soul accumulated throughout its existence. So everything is a consequence. I think some of you have heard of the law of action and consequence. The way we feel, think, and act in previous existences, this determines our destiny. As a Greek philosopher once said, a man's character is his destiny. So it is our actions. With our actions, we are creating our destiny without realizing it, unconsciously. But we are determining our future, which will develop in a next life with favorable or unfavorable circumstances, with wealth or poverty. In short, the way we determine ourselves is through our own actions. Whether positive or negative, all will have consequences that will later determine the characteristics that will strengthen in ourselves. Let's say a person has developed a character of a warrior in one of his lives, a particularity of being fiery, full of enthusiasm, full of daringness, a person who is a pioneer, who likes to undertake, who is outgoing, who has that joy of the fire element. Probably in the next life, that person is born under the influence of the constellation of Aries. So he is born at the end of March to April. That determines the character of that person through the actions and temperament that he developed in himself. Then he comes into a determined sign. A person who in one of his existences developed much refinement, diplomacy, human relationships, love for music, love for art, the ability to tell the truth without hurting, the ability to see various points of views in the same situation. Well, that person, through his behavior, determines that a next existence is born ruled by the sign of Libra. So we see that nothing is by chance. Everything is what we create. They are consequences of our own creation. We could also talk about the negative part of these signs. We talk about Aries and Libra. So that person who developed that fiery and enthusiastic temperament, that person also ends up developing the negative polarity of all this, which would be anger, it would be pride, believing himself always to be right. Then this person is born in the sign of Aries. So, when we see that the soul has a trajectory, that it does not arrive for the first time, we understand that what happens today is therefore a consequence of the result of what was done before. And to give an example of another element, we spoke of the fire element of Aries and the air element of Libra. Let's talk about a water sign. A person who has developed in a certain existence the sensitivity, the vision that we are all one, the spiritual longing, the mystique, that person would then be born in his next existence governed by the sign of Pisces, because he himself cultivated those virtues, those capacities, and he would also bring him the negative polarities of this constellation, which would be the excess of sensitivity, which would be the disorganization, which would be the tendency to leave reality. These are all characteristics of the constellation Pisces. So to conclude this first study, this introduction to astrology, as tools of psychology and of self-knowledge, I want to encourage each person to unveil their own mysteries. In Gnostic studies, we go deeper into each constellation, each sign, so that each person knows their sign better, because he was born under that regency, which are the capacities, virtues, and also the defects and difficulties that are involved in this, which must be known to be able to be eliminated, defects that can be eliminated, and capacities that can be developed. We hope that we have given a clear picture of this class, and we will wait for you to study each sign in more detail. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you next time.